Hi everybody, and welcome to this third installment of our Exit Right series, how to drive your business from startup to exit. For those of you who have joined us previously, you know that we started at the end. We started with how you exit. Last time we spoke about your finances, we talked about change, we talked about how do you look after your people, what happens if you're not in the business anymore. Today we're going to talk about new business development and customer acquisitions. With us today we have, thank you, I don't want to hear myself echoing back through the building. With us today we have three wonderful speakers and soon to be joined by our fourth panelist, so introducing them in turn. We have Matt Brown, co-founder of Quorbit. We have Matt Pumfrey in the middle, CEO of Innovation Gateway Limited. And last but not least, we have Paul Essery, founder of My Sales Guru International. Joining us on the panel later will be Nikki, who helped set up Barclays Eagle Labs here in Oxford. One of our very kind and generous sponsors for this event, together with the Oxford Trust, Oxford Innovation and us at Freeths. So without further ado, if I can hand over to Matt.
Thank you. Just try not to spill my water. Great. Thanks for having me. So I'm Matt Brown. I'm the founder of Quorbit, and I'm just going to tell you a bit about our journey, I guess, focusing predominantly on the last couple of years where we've brought a product to market, we've gained traction, working with early adopter clients, and then also something about our kind of route to market. Let me just tell you a bit of background about myself very quickly. I don't like to dwell on it. So I've worked in the workforce management industry for over 20 years now. So that's an industry where we work alongside large enterprises, predominantly employers in the retail, hospitality, manufacturing space, anyone with large number of employees to manage. And originally I worked as a consultant, business consultant, with a few technology providers, but then also independently in the space. And around sort of 2015, 2016, started to work with a few clients who had a problem that they couldn't solve with a piece of software in the market. So we started to work alongside them, evolve capabilities, and let me talk to you about Quorbit. So just adjust this slightly. So as I say, Quorbit it's an enterprise software as a service solution addressing these significant challenges that we see today in large-scale workforce planning, and predominantly we're focusing on working with customers in the large retail and hospitality space. We're using a category that exists currently called strategic workforce planning. We're aiming to disrupt that a little bit in terms of providing an offering that doesn't quite fit with the existing space. And what we're doing is effectively providing a really granular capability to model and quantify demand, so what the needs of the business are, looking at the supply, so what's your workforce today, and then using the platform to provide modeling capabilities to look at different strategies out into the future, or tactical execution. How can I actually decide what I do this week, next week, about resourcing the business? In terms of the product itself, just a very brief overview. So it's what we call no-code modeling solution. So it's all driven from the end user point of view. It's highly flexible, delivering forecasting models through configuration alone. One of the real value propositions that we provide is this scenario-based modeling capabilities. So to test out different business strategies. And assess those, and we have an optimization capability as well to help businesses look at their contractual mix, make decisions about how they recruit the workforce into the future. And something that's unique about our offering is that we enable these models to be deployed throughout the whole organization. So the sort of corporate strategy team can use it centrally, but they can then deploy that logic and methodology right the way down into the field, so that decisions that are made operationally are actually joined up with the corporate strategy. In terms of our history, just to sort of tell you where we come from, sort of I wrapped 5 years into one slide, which sort of dumbs down all of those days, weeks, years of hard grind. But yeah, effectively, kind of the top section there is about our cloud solution and cloud offering, building an MVP. We're entirely bootstrapped, and that was done through what's happening underneath here, which is where we continued our consultancy activities to fund the development of the product. We worked with a number of large UK consulting customers to effectively test and prove out what it is that we were bringing to market, to feed that into our MVP software development. And then at a certain point in time, heavily influenced by COVID totally killing our consultancy practice, we went all in with the software business and then shifted our focus to onboarding customers into the cloud platform. So you can then see over on the right there where we start to evolve our market engagement with our early adopter client acquisition, but then also at the top you can see some of our more sort of strategic corporate strategy around engaging with partners in the market to bring our product to their ecosystem. And then from a technology point of view, we've had to adapt and shift quite a lot over that period. So focusing on business development and sort of customer acquisition, broadly speaking, our market engagement, just wanted to sort of walk through how we tackle this. And I want to preface everything here with, I didn't have a plan. This was very much, I don't know, is it opportunity? Is it accident? Is it luck? I don't know. We just kind of, yeah, we were lucky. Made it up as we went along, but yeah, things seem to have panned out. So my background was not sales, very much delivery, consultancy. So this whole aspect was totally alien to me. It was probably it still is the hardest part of the job. And sort of we started with that initial idea. We spent far too long probably coding, thinking, oh, we'll build something, and when it's ready, we'll take it to market. Well, that's not really how it works. And very quickly, with our first engagement with the marketplace, which was our first client was Nike, we very rapidly found that actually what we were doing was not quite aligned with what we needed. So those first touch points were really important. The product didn't scale. So what Nike was demanding of us gave us huge technical challenges. So we had to adjust and go back to the drawing board. We'd already also missed key features and functionalities that we weren't perhaps aware of or we hadn't thought through properly. So getting that initial touch point, feedback from the market was hugely valuable. And Nike, as a partner, effectively, we struck a very attractive deal for them, I guess. They went on that journey and went on that journey with us to help us innovate. We then moved on to B&M stores, and I guess that's a sort of repetition. So we touched the market once, we gathered feedback, tried it again, and actually this was a very easy deployment. Their requirements were very aligned with what we knew. They were a previous consulting customer, so we had a very good relationship, good trust. We repeated what we'd done before, very smooth. Move on, again, Costa, another consulting customer of ours, so we had a very good relationship. They understood the value of what we were doing, but actually they looked at our new product and they saw an opportunity to put a capability into the hands of the field team. We weren't actually selling them a solution that did that. So this prompted a pivot. We innovated as a result of feedback from the market. We created a new capability. And so that is another example where getting out into the marketplace, getting engagement, getting feedback was really valuable to us. And that's now within our product suite. It's something that we can then take elsewhere. Post-Nord, the last one there, that's an entirely partner-led deal. And our partner ecosystem is actually hugely valuable to us. It takes us out into the market in places where we wouldn't, within our own capability, reach. And that is minimal sales effort. So we're able to engage the partner sales organization, deliver a client, and extend our reach with confidence based on what we'd had in terms of market discovery and evolution. So I guess to summarize where we've got a combination of direct route to market, we've got partner route to market. The direct has been very informal, it's about personal networks. Moving forwards, we're now building out a formal sales channel so that we're doing things like social media. We're strategizing with target accounts. We're finding out who the buyers are. We've got buyer personas, all these things that I think you'll probably talk about next event around marketing. So yeah, that all feeds into what I'm calling a business model. All of those things that sort of come together as to how you engage with the marketplace, understanding your pricing, understanding your value, understanding your messaging, the product itself. You can't get that without going on that journey with those initial customers. So I guess wrapping up very quickly, our learnings, it's about product market fit is key, obviously. Don't innovate too long. So you can code away and build something, but if it's not right, they won't come. Look at the route to markets, try and simplify and amplify your efforts. So channel partnerships, for example. Beachhead customers, critical. They become partners. We struck a very good, attractive deal to sort of create that initial traction. Understand the metrics, so this can apply to customer metrics, to investor metrics, things like recurring revenues rather than service revenues, or from a customer point of view, what's the ROI? And marketing, it's not a nice to have, it's essential. I'm not a marketeer, not in sales, but it's been a massive eye-opening journey getting to this stage. And so all of this business model, it just needs to evolve, and that's through testing and interaction with the market. So hopefully, very quick whirlwind journey there, but hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense of where we've come from, where we're currently at, where we're moving forward to. So yeah, look forward to answering some questions, but I think we're passing on now.
Thank you very much, Matt. We'll do questions at the end when we've heard from all of our trusted speakers. Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Hello, everyone. So my name's Matt Pumfrey. I'm Chief Exec of Innovation Gateway. But I suppose when I was pulling together a few slides on this, I was mindful of not going on about Innovation Gateway per se, but more about my journey. So to give you sort of a bit of a feel of that, I've worked and been in the sustainability sector for 30 years. So I've had a number of businesses in that time. So I think I've worked for about 10% of that time for somebody else. So I've had four or five businesses. One went pretty well, 2 or 3 were okay, and one was a bit of a failure. But all of those have given me experiences in terms of trying to take product or take whatever it is into the market. And I suppose just what I've done today is just pull together a few slides just with some thoughts around that. So, under the title of what I wish I knew before I started, I think just putting it in context, the organisations that I've set up and have been across the sphere, one with particular technology into a market, a couple with consultancy businesses and sort of services businesses, and one with the software sort of platform. So it's been quite a blend. I think one of the interesting things, and it comes back to actually what Matt was talking about there, is around don't get fixated on the technology or the solution without speaking to the market. It's get that beta product, go out, test it, talk to the market and find out. And what we've found is, or certainly what I've found, is that the market is often very responsive to you. If you come and ask their opinion, they'll tell you what is going to work for them. There's a particular case study, and I've just put little hyphens here, and in my sort of working life, this is last year actually, quite recently, with a particular technology that we were taking into a large hospitality business. They had this fantastic heat recovery technology for the kitchens. The particular client that we were representing were really keen on rolling it across 2,500 sites, and it could have, really exploded this particular business. But it was too big. And the engineer, I was standing in the car park afterwards, and the engineer said to me, he said, God, if I'd just had this conversation 18 months, 2 years ago, I'd have designed something that could have fitted this application. And it just, for me, it just went, oh God, yeah, that's what it is. How can we get that interaction to make sure that whatever you get your stuff out into the market and really find out, is anybody going to buy it? Second one, understand the dynamics and the players in the market and where you fit in the value chain. I had a business that I brought back from New Zealand in 1998 in the organic recovery, recycling space. A really, really revolutionary piece of technology. We rolled out about 20 or 30 sites across Europe, but it was big, heavy. Cheapest piece of kit was about 2 million quid, so it's big buy. But we sat behind the waste industry, and the waste industry, we didn't understand that at the time. And I was out there pushing this technology and getting lots of platitudes, but nobody out of that market was buying it. And they were the ones holding the waste stream that I needed. So it wasn't until we realized that, and then I started going direct to poultry companies and things like that we started getting some acceleration. So a big learning for me was understanding where I stood in the market. Understand your buyers' dynamics. Are they looking good? I had a business that I set up 2011 with an energy procurement company that we tied in energy procurement with a smart software platform that could go and drive down energy demand. We sold into our first 3 clients we had. They all bought it. And I was thinking, oh God, this is brilliant. I hit the jackpot here. Let's roll it on. And then it started to not slow down, and we started to really struggle to get into the bigger clients. And then it suddenly dawned on me that one of the issues was when we were talking to ops directors, fundamentally what we were saying to them is, you've been doing a really, really rubbish job so far because you've been stitched over by your energy procurement businesses. So we then had to have a rethink in terms of how we put the narrative around what we were offering to the market. So it didn't, effectively gave the ops directors a bit of a get out in these bigger companies we were dealing with. Be resilient and prepare to pivot. Matt was talking about the pivoting bit. The organic recovery technology I have, we've started getting kit out and then foot and mouth hit, which basically stopped the market for 18 months. So my main market in the UK just stopped overnight. So I had to go into Europe then at that point. And you have a few sleepless nights to say the least, but we found a way. And I think I keep on saying that to my team now, we'll always find a way. Be prepared to do the boring stuff, strategy, marketing, admin. I love sustainability. I'm passionate. I can drone on for hours about it, but I've still got to go and do the boring stuff because otherwise my business will fall over. And just an old one, but probably the most important one, cash is king. So, just a few other things of the thoughts of mine. Don't focus on profit. Focus on the service, the product, and the outcomes. I'm fortunate enough in Innovation Gateway, we've got some fantastic large corporate clients, Tesco's, NatWest, probably shouldn't say NatWest in here, but Green King, Heathrow, some really, really big chunky organisations. The business though, when I took it over 9 months ago, we hadn't really been servicing the outcomes that some of them wanted, and it's taken us quite a lot of time to get back on the right side of that. Unfortunately, they've all signed up and we're taking further projects forward. But it's outcomes. They need to see outcomes. If they're paying for my services, I need to provide the outcomes for them. It's hard and can be really lonely. You can have some sleepless nights. I've learned over the years to bring some really good people around me. So there's trusted mentors that I've had and picked up along my life's journey that I call on. I went and met up with one in Worcester on Thursday afternoon last week. And it was great just to have somebody I know, somebody who I trust, they trust me, and we can have very candid conversations. I think it's really important to get those people around you. One thing that I'm still struggling with, I'm a bit of a control freak, but I'm getting better at it, is delegating. Unfortunately, I'm putting some great people in my business now, and I'm feeling comfortable and confident to be able to do that delegation. Time management is another one. It's not just about busy, it's about being productive. And then getting the work-life balance. And the last one I've sort of picked up off a podcast recently is so true. I have fun. I'm really lucky because I love my area and I'm really passionate about it, and I get up every morning with a passion for it. So fundamentally I have fun, but I do see others, as we talk to innovators in the market that we're trying to help to get into the big corporates, some of them have just been beaten down and it's just become a bit of a exercise. So make sure you keep having fun. So in terms of the business development side of things, I think some of the learnings that I've had here, listen to the customer. I look back in my past life and there's been a couple of times where I've gone, can't you understand? This is going to be brilliant for you. And they go, but it's not, I don't want to buy that. I want to buy this. So make sure you listen to them. So that know your client scenario, the landscape, the stakeholders, who's got the budget, who are the influencers, who are the buyers. It's, we sort of debate at the moment about going into the public sector and how we should be working with them. But I know from past experience of when I was in a corporate that it's a long sales cycle. There's a real procurement hurdles to go through. There's a whole, struggle. So you go, do I go and spend the time and effort and resources to do that? Or do I go after markets that I can get a yes or a no quicker? What have they committed to? Somebody taught me a few years ago this around, replaying their own words, because then they can't really argue about if you're meeting the words that they're pushing out in the market about how great they are around sustainability. I can replay back to that message, saying how I can help them resolve those issues. And then understanding the politics, don't step on the mine. It's similarly, it's like my example I was talking about earlier on about, if you're making the ops director not look particularly good, then, you're never going to sell anything to that particular organisation because they're going to be, they're not going to get behind you. And the other thing, you never know where an opportunity might come from. Fairfield Materials Management up in Manchester, I went to a community conference and my business partner at the time was saying, what the hell are you going to be doing that for? I mean, what a waste. They're never going to buy anything. The lady I met up there then, within 7 months had raised just over 2.5 million quid and bought 2 million quid of kit off me. And that was a real dawning realisation. You never know. So put yourself out and, talk to as many people as you can about what you do, because you just never know where the next opportunity is going to arrive. And then one of the things that, Matt was talking about, that test and tweak, ask what the market wants and the minimal viable product. Why did Dropbox win when it was quite a long way behind other organisations in that particular market? Was because it got it out into the market really quickly and said to the market, you tell us how to improve it. And it gave free storage space and it gave some certain smart marketing, but fundamentally that's why it suddenly accelerated over above bigger and better competition. So I've just dropped this one in. I thought this might be of interest from an investor's perspective. This is going to sound really grandiose, but I'm a partner in a little boutique merchant bank. We invest in digital and sustainability programs and projects and project management. And one of the guys there that is one of the founders of the organisation, he's an ex-banker and investor for the last 40 years. And he listed this out for me about 5 years ago, and I still use it now with various organisations I work with. So for investors, what are they looking for? Because you can be really passionate about your product and about your service, but fundamentally, they want to make money. So it sort of boils down to 6 areas. 1, the market. Can you prove your product or service is in a large and growing market? Have you got product market fit? The technology and service, is it proven? At what scale? What risks are they, and how mature is the market? So what market risks could you face? The business model, is your business model proven? Have you made money at it? What are the key ingredients to the success and continuing success of it? Is it capitally light or heavy? Is it a premium and a bargain product you got out there? And again, identifying what those risks are. The commercial model, it is different from the business model. But is it hard to sell? Is it complex or is it novel? When lighting as a service first started, which is basically targeting an operational budget as opposed to a capex to put in LED lighting, it was really difficult for the market to pick it up because nobody had ever done it before. But once you had enough customers had started buying it and you had enough use cases, that market has exploded. It's very similar to the software as a service from X number of years ago. So how easy is it for buyers to buy? The unit economics, whatever your product or service, what gross margin is it at? What is the sales cycle? How many units are sold? How big is the total addressable market that you can go for? And then lastly, the team, is it credible? we often get organisations with great technologies, small businesses looking for, we're more Series A, but some seed funding, and they'll have the technical capabilities within the organisation are fantastic. The product may be fantastic, but if they haven't got any commercial or leadership experience in there, it's more than likely going to fail. It's a massive red flag risk. So pulling together the right team is really, really, really important. So anyway, I hope that's been of interest. Just throwing up some of the ideas and things that I've sort of come across over my last 30 years, and obviously keep us any questions that you may have, and obviously email address for me if anybody wants to get in contact.
Thanks, Matt. Cool. Oh, we've got a box of tricks.
Well, not quite tricks.
Not quite tricks.
Okay, so there you go. That's me. I've only got one slide after this. So my name's Paul. When I left home at 16, my grand plan was to travel the world and go climbing, which I have done to a greater extent. So, the first message I want to communicate to you is that I'm not a proper business person in any real sense. But the problem I had when I was travelling the world with my mates having fun going climbing was that I didn't make any money out of it. So, to cut a long and really boring story short, I ended up as an entrepreneur really to fund and give me the flexibility to go climbing, right? So, and I'm, horrified to say that was now over 40 years ago. So the upside to being old is that I've been in business a long time, and I've had 5 businesses. This is my 5th business. My very first business, which I set up, I sold to a company called Tribal, which is it's a global player now. I mean, you can invest in it if you want. You can buy shares. I wouldn't, but you could if you were stupid. So really what Wendy asked me to do was, because in all of those businesses and in this current business where I just teach people to sell, I've played a role, I've usually led on the kind of business development function. So what Wendy asked me to do is to talk a little bit about the kind of things that have gone wrong and some of the things I've learned over the years. These are not things that you'll find in the kind of textbooks around sales, if you like. They're more my perspective on it. So that's my story, if you like. The first thing that I always say to people, and you can see it up there actually, is that the first thing I always say to people is try and simplify your approach to sales. And people often look at me and say, well, it's complicated, we have to do this, we have to do that. And of course, all those things are true, but people forget that in sales, as in lots of areas of life, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule kicks in. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, what that means is that 20% of your inputs deliver 80% of your outputs, right? So there's a small number of things that you need to do to get your sales working well. And if you focus on getting those things right, you can make big progress without having to invest in huge amounts of energy and effort. The other thing that's interesting about the kind of Pareto thing that I've learned over the years is that the 20% of the 20% delivers the 80% of the 80%, if you see what I mean. So if you kind of work down through it, you can really improve your effectiveness by focusing right down on those things that really have an impact. And I'm going to talk about some of those things now. It's different in different contexts, obviously, but getting those handful, the phrase is vital few, getting the handful of those vital few things right really has a huge impact on your sales. So, how many people here have heard of Dick Fosbury? High jumper, Fosbury flop? Yeah, there's a few people nodding. Okay, so Dick Fosbury, for those of you that haven't come across Dick Fosbury was interesting. In the 70s, he was a high jumper, and at the time, people would come up and go over the bar forwards. Dick Fosbury came along and said, actually, if I go over backwards, I can go a lot higher. Now you don't see anyone go over the bar forwards, not intentionally anyway. They all go over backwards because it's just a much better way of doing things, right? And I think there are backwards ways of doing sales stuff that are really, really useful to you if you think about those and you apply them to your setting. So when I say to people, where do sales come from and what's the process that a sale results from, they say to me usually, well, a sale comes from, is the output of a sales process, right? Perfectly reasonable, yeah? I mean, and they're right. You have to do all those salesy things. You know, you promote the product and you do presentations and you send emails and you write to people and you produce brochures and all that salesy stuff. And eventually you hope that a sale pops out the end of the process, right? But the sale is also the output of another process. And we call it a different thing. We call it a purchase, and it's the output of a buying process, okay? But it's actually the same thing. I mean, we might look at it as a buyer and see it as a purchase. If you're a seller, you see it as a sale, but they're actually the same thing. And the thing that's important is that at some point during the buying process, the buyer has to make a decision to switch from the status quo, which might be a competitor product, or it might be no product or whatever. But at some point, for you to have a sale, they have to decide that they're going to switch to your thing. I call it the switching point. It's the moment at which the customer says, I want that thing rather than the thing that I've got. Okay? Now, when you think about that and when you start to investigate that, the interesting thing about it is that actually there are a very limited number of reasons why people buy stuff. So let's look at an example. So imagine you're buying a dress, or you want to buy a dress, okay? So how many reasons are there to...
I don't buy dresses.
Well, I wasn't looking at you actually, but anyway. So why do people, I mean, what are the reasons that people buy a dress? Some suggestions, thoughts, Wendy, why would you buy a dress?
To make me feel comfortable.
To make you feel comfortable. Any other reasons?
You're looking here now about a dress buy.
An event.
Sorry?
An event.
Yeah, you might be going to a party. Any other takers? You have no self-control. Yeah, good one, good one. That certainly applies to some women that I know. Any other thoughts?
Because it's pretty.
Because it's pretty. Sorry? Because you're cold. You're warm. Yeah. My point is, there's a fairly limited number of reasons why people buy stuff. So if you understand why people buy stuff, what are the reasons that make people switch? What you can then do is focus your energy and activities in the sales process on triggering the reasons why people want to buy. Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah? Very, very obvious, isn't it, really? So once you understand those things, you can focus down and say, okay, these are the reasons people buy, or most people buy, or the reasons people buy in our target market. So what we can do is we can focus our energies and efforts on making those things happen, triggering triggering those behaviours. And at that point, right, I mean, the logic makes sense there, doesn't it? But the thing then that happens is that everybody does that bit wrong. Okay, so I'm just going to explain to you why that all goes wrong. So I just need Wendy. Can you just come here, Wendy? I need to use Wendy here. So I want you to imagine a scenario. Okay, so I want you to imagine that Wendy has called me up and said, Paul, I'm going to a party. And I need you, because you have such good taste, I need you to come with me and help me to choose a dress. Okay, like that's the scenario, right? So we're in this dress shop, but I'm a bit late and I'm in a hurry. And Wendy is not the most decisive of people. I mean, that's not true normally, but of course, for the purposes of this scenario, right, she's not being very decisive. So I want to hurry her up. So I want to persuade her to buy this dress that we've seen, okay? Yeah, get people following the scenario. So I'm going to demonstrate to you two sales techniques, and I want you to tell me afterwards which one do you think will work most effectively? Which is the one that will probably encourage you to buy the dress? So, okay, we're in the shop. Wendy's picked out the dress. I like the dress. I just wanted to buy it. So I say, Wendy,
Paul,
I think you should buy this dress because. Now, the fabric is beautifully made. It's manufactured in Hong Kong. It's made of nylon. It's, and the great thing about this particular fabric is that if you spill a drink over it, yeah, it's stain resistant. And, I know that happens occasionally to you with a gin and tonic. And not only is it stain resistant, when you sit on the floor, when you've had one gin and tonic too many, it doesn't crease up, so you can stand up and you still look great, okay? So that's why, And the stitching's lovely as well. That's why I think you should buy this dress. So that's sales strategy number 1, which we'll call the features and benefit pitch. Yeah? Now, this is sales strategy number 2. Wendy,
Paul.
I think you should buy this dress because when we go to the party tonight, you will look fabulous.
Oh, wow.
Now, you tell me which strategy is more likely to work. Yes, thank you, Wendy. So, the point I'm making is that people focus on logic, but what drives buying behaviour is actually emotion. Now, that is not to say that logic doesn't matter. Yeah? I mean, after we bought the dress, when we got to the party, and we said, "Thank God I bought that dress because I spilt the drink, and it was really important that it's washable, right?" So we used logic to justify what is essentially an emotional decision. We always do that. People think it only happens in B2C environments, but actually it happens in B2B just as much. And the other interesting thing, the neuroscience more recently has actually worked out the thing that creates desire. The thing that actually makes people want to buy, okay? The emotional trigger that makes people want to buy. Now, let me just try and explain to you how it works. This is a simplified explanation, but I think it will make sense. So, how many people... No, let's go take one step back. I'd like to ask you a question. I want you to think about how happy you feel now, today, here in this room. How happy do you feel? And I want you to give that feeling a score out of 10. 10 being, I am on top of the world. This is fabulous. He is the best speaker ever, right? That's a 10. A 0 is, he's absolutely rubbish. He's making me really miserable. I'm depressed. I've got a mental health issue. I'm going to go and jump out the window. Okay? So on that scale, 1 to 10, I want you to think about how you feel now, right now, and I want you to give yourself a score out of 10. Yeah? 0 if you're suicidal, 10 if you're fantastic, and my guess is you'll probably be somewhere between those two. Yeah? And what I'd like you to do is put your hand up, and with your finger, I'd like you to write the number on your hand. Okay? So have you got the number? Yeah? Write the number on your hand. Okay? Everyone done that? Right. How many people wrote a 10? Oh, that's a bit of a shame. How many people wrote 0? That's good. Okay, nobody's going to go and commit suicide because of what I'm saying. That's a step in the right direction. How many people wrote a 6, a 7 or an 8? Hands up? Most people. Right. And I've done this exercise on quite a few occasions, and that response happens every time. And the reason is this is what the neuroscience is telling us now, that we're hardwired to feel okay most of the time, right? The thing that creates desire is filling the gap. We want to go from 6, 7 or 8 to 9 or 10. And we imagine that the thing that we're going to buy will take us to the number 10, right? And it's because you haven't owned the thing, you don't know, but you imagine that it will make you feel good in some way, which is why you want to buy it, okay? And it creates tremendous amounts of value when you can harness it. So, I mean, for example, if you look at, I'm interested in getting a Porsche, which I don't need, but if you were to consider a Dacia Sandero or something, a little hatchback, I think it cost about 10,000. Get you from A to B, reasonably fuel efficient, perhaps not as fast as a Porsche, but take you up to the speed limit, right? So functionally, a Dacia Sandero for 10 grand will do whatever you want. But I want a Porsche, which will cost 50 grand. And the reason I want that Porsche is because I imagine myself with my sunglasses on, driving around in the south of France with the top down, right, feeling really uncharacteristically cool. Okay? And the point I'm getting at is that desire to plug that gap, to make yourself feel good, is ultimately the driver behind buying behaviour, behind desire, which then triggers buying behaviour. Okay, and that's just as true with B2B products. You think, and I used to, one of my businesses was, or 2 tech businesses actually. We talked a lot about the features and benefit of the product. We never really, certainly not in my view, we never really fully understood why the product would make people feel great. And with the second business, we did start to nail that. But the point is, once you nail what is it about the product that will make people feel great, you can then unlock that and use that to drive your marketing, your advertising, your brand development, the way you present the product to people, etc., etc. Okay? So does that make sense? The thing about it makes you feel good in some way is the key to getting people to buy. If you can work out how to do that, you're halfway there. Okay, so just a couple of last little things before I shut up. And the reason I'm going to talk about them is because they're not related to that sort of specifics about buying, but they are important in terms of how you sell to customers. So how many people here like being told what to do? Hands up if you like being bossed around. No. Okay. So the psychologists call that reactance. Yeah, people don't like being told what to do. And the reason for that is that when you're an adult, part of being an adult is that you make your own decisions. Yeah, you're autonomous. It's a critical component to the adult psyche. Yeah, is the ability to make your own decisions. I choose to do this. I choose to buy stuff. It's the reason why we love to buy stuff. One of the reasons, yeah, because I decide that I want it. The problem with a lot of sales is that actually what we try to do is tell people what they should buy. Yeah? We call it what? We call it pitching. Okay? So pitching, this is the critical point, pitching is one of the least effective sales techniques ever invented. And the point I would make to people is that when you have to pitch, you do have to learn to pitch because you have to do it to investors to get people to give you money. But the thing to remember is that pitching events are designed for investors. They're not designed for you. I mean, you're just in a beauty parade begging to give, for you to get the money off them. Give me the money, please, because I'm desperate. The investors are sat there picking and choosing and making you feel bad because you're stood up the front whittering away when actually they've already made their mind up. And, but you've got to, it's not the only way you can get money from investors, but often that's the route. But what people seem to think, because we have all these crazy pitching events and because we have, Dragon's Den and all the rest of it, that pitching is now equated by a generation of people to selling. And it's not. So, and one of the reasons it doesn't work, particularly as a sales tool, is because people don't like to be told to buy the thing. So pitching is the least effective sales method. That's the other point I would make. And the final thing is that the other thing that pitching is not closing. So the other critical, to come back to the vital few things that really make a difference to your sales process, the critical point is being able to negotiate and close a deal. Yeah? And the bigger the product, the more complicated the piece of technology is or whatever, the more complicated and difficult that is. And simply pitching at people doesn't help you close. That's the other reason that pitching, but people seem to think that it does, so they keep doing it, but it doesn't really work. And the other thing that I've learned, I've trained a lot of people in how to sell. And what's been interesting is that of all the people I've had to train, of all the people I've worked with, not a single one, not one, has known how to close correctly. So, my final point, that is, when you're thinking about how you land deals, whatever, think about those kind of, when do I need to pitch? When do I need to focus on closing? When do I need to think about the features and benefits and the logic? And when do I need to think about the emotion? Okay? And that's end of speech. And I think I've covered everything on my list. And that's it. Have I covered everything? Yeah. That's it, that's me, done. And I'm happy to take questions. Oh, sorry, I forgot one last thing. Sorry. The goodies. Yeah, sorry, I forgot all about this. That's because I'm stupid. So, in here, I have some stuff, some really cool stuff, right? 2 really cool things, which you can have. If you come down here at the end, if you'd like, if you're not interested in sales, then don't bother, right? Because it's salesy stuff. But there's some really cool stuff in it. So if you want this cool stuff, come down, give us your business card, and you can take one away. Please don't do it today. Not going to come and get the thing today, but don't do the thing inside till tomorrow morning. Okay? It'll be clear why when you do it. Okay. And I'll shut up now. Sorry about that.
I love it. I'm intrigued. Thank you, Paul. Nikki, do you want to come down and join us? Perfect. I'll scoot away, give you some space. Thank you. Do you want to say a few words about Barclays Eagle Labs before we start? Where you fit in the ecosystem?
Yeah,
what you
I
do?
will do.
Thank you.
So ecosystems, let's start there. Good place to start. And I know Matt from Quorbit mentioned ecosystems at the beginning, and the role they have regarding business development and certainly growth of your business. So an ecosystem, what actually is that? Essentially, it's a network, simplified. And how do Eagle Labs align with ecosystems? So Eagle Labs provide physical spaces for businesses to continue with their innovation and growth. They provide access to networks, which arguably are one of the most powerful tools when you're growing your business, because worked correctly, they can add the most value to your business. So I guess from an Eagle Labs perspective, how we align is not only through the banking side provided by Barclays as an organisation, and that goes all the way through your journey as a business, but also the provision of support and the access to mentoring when you need it, the access to some of the things that you've heard this evening around, tips, things what to do and things not to do, and Paul and the whole ethos around sales. I guess that's kind of it from me, really, in a nutshell. I don't want to kind of chat on. I want to leave some time for Q&A, but essentially that is ecosystems, and make sure you get in touch with the right people. Contact Eagle Labs because they will help you with the navigation and the networks.
Thank you, Nikki. Questions from the floor or from the internet, if there are any?
Thank you. We've got a question here. Probably going to direct it at Paul, if that's all right, but obviously anyone else feel free to chip in. The question is quite simple. How do you close?
That was going to be my question.
Not the way you think. I haven't really got time to talk people through how you do that at the moment. But if you ask the question, what is it that would make the customer decide to buy, you'll probably find the way to working out how to close. So think about it. Think about the close, not from the point of view of you and what you need, but think about it from the point of view of the customer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I suppose, are you going to meet the out? It depends what you're selling, of course, but are you meeting the outcomes that they require to be met in whatever they're purchasing?
Would you agree, Paul, that sometimes at the right moment it's about saying nothing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Nice dress, by the way.
Any other questions?
Go on then.
You knew I would. You spoke about the difference between the logic and the emotional sales process. We deal a lot with a lot of high technology, engineering based small companies, particularly in the ecosystem we have around Barclays, around Eagle Labs. Those are typically engineers who are not, should we say, overly blessed with the emotional or the sensitivities around the emotional close. How do we get engineers to become good salespeople?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've worked with, my last business we worked with, I worked with a bunch of software engineers, and it is very difficult when people are of that ilk, if you see what I mean. But it's like most things. These are skills that can be developed. I always say to people, well, it's the joke about the social worker and the light bulb. People heard that. How many social workers does it take to change the light bulb? One, but the light bulb's got to want to change. Yeah, you can turn anyone into a good salesperson if they want to learn. And so the trick actually is working out, do they want to do this? If they want to do it, then how do we help them develop those skills? And it takes a little bit of time to do that. But they're human beings. They're and if they're motivated, they can figure out those things. And the other thing, if you know what the switching point is, if you know what those handful of factors are that influence the buy, then you can look at the emotional bit that sits behind the logic, and then you can work out how to trigger it, and then you just teach people how to do it. So it's a learning and development challenge fundamentally. I mean, obviously some people are better at it than others. Some people have better emotional intelligence than others. But ultimately it's a learning thing, and it's about wanting to learn, and the business investing time and energy in helping people to learn. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. It's a familiar territory, so I'm curious about your perspective on it. In my view, it's very much trying to get, if they don't want to do it themselves, putting the help around them, because sometimes the deeply embedded engineer, no matter how hard they try, won't get there. But as you say, understanding the gap, and then other people with them as part of the team as the team grows. And again, you get into the situation then of how do you scope a team to bring salesmen into engineering companies?
Yeah, I mean, on that specific point, I've just been working with a client for the last year, and the person that has come out the best at sales actually is the chief engineer. So I don't want to stereotype all engineers as emotionally illiterate, because it's just not the case.
So another question from online is, how does a startup get good mentors and senior advisors?
Ask for them.
It's difficult. Ask for them. I mean, I think you'll be amazed the number of people that would be willing to spend time with. I'm sitting on a couple of mentor programs at the moment, and I suppose I go into it thinking I'm going to learn just as much as hopefully they're going to learn but it's a human interaction. And I had one session, 1.5 hour call today, and they said, "Look, can I call you next week?" Fine, just as long as I fit into my time. I'm more than, and you'll find most people are really open to passing on their sort of giving back. I suppose now I've got grey hair and past 50, it's probably part of my job.
I think the Eagle Labs ecosystem has been amazing for that as well. From my experience, I almost hadn't considered mentorship before embarking on this sort of journey through the ecosystem, and I've gained access to people very generous with their time, who've had those experiences, some of which cause grey hairs, but hugely valuable, I think.
I think the one last thing I'd say about going for a mentor, be really clear what you want out of it, because then it makes it a much better conversation and discussion. Otherwise it's, well, really nice to meet you and have a coffee, but what it is that I can help you with.
For the first, Matt. So you've talked a lot about your journey from 2016 when you founded the business and really launched it. How many of the lessons that you have learned have been particularly unique to that project and you've not been able to implement it on further into your next projects, and how many of them have you been able to implement into future projects, maybe on a percentage scale?
Okay, so I guess the journey from 2016 was about building the platform that we've taken to market today. I guess we probably didn't actually start learning until we exposed it to the marketplace, which was beginning of middle to end of 2020. What is really important through that journey is the sort of test and iterate and constantly learn and change. Every touch point is just building on that wealth of feedback from the market to improve the next one. And so projects, I guess, or customers, we're just adding to that bank of knowledge, and that bank of knowledge goes into the product, and the product becomes more aligned with what the market needs. Percentage-wise, it's kind of hard to give a number, but yeah, it's just accumulating more and more experience. And as I said, I guess, had this vision that we would just build the product and then we start selling it very naively. And so it becomes immediately transparent when you touch the marketplace that that's not how it works. And so perhaps we should have started touching the market earlier, but that's a lesson that you learn, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Also, a question for Matt. I remember the first customer you have is Nike. Do you know them yourself? Know them before, as consulting for them? Or?
No, actually. So that was an introduction through personal network. So I went to visit them in Holland when basically the business had one employee. It was one of those opportunities. It wasn't strategy. It was luck.
We find finding that first really not loyal, but sort of engaged, committed
Absolutely.
customers is quite a potential customer. It's quite difficult. We have projects that we engage with quite a lot of people, and unfortunately, we find sort of maybe they are not actually the right kind of.
Yeah. So it's about finding that gem within an organisation who sees the opportunity, doesn't expect to buy something off the shelf that's ready-made, fits the job perfectly, but is willing to perhaps stick their neck out a little bit and take the risk internally, but sees the potential to become a star within their organisation for having brought something new to the team, and work with that external partner to innovate.
That's something very intriguing, because Nike obviously is a very big company, potential customer. It really, I mean, how you actually secure that connection is really amazing. I mean,
Yes.
I mean, which we find it extremely difficult, especially at the beginning. You still have that product market fit stage.
Yeah, and we haven't finished. We're constantly, as I just said, evolving and adapting to what. There is never an end point when you're building a product. It's constantly changing. The marketplace changes, the demands change. So
It's about that initial traction. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I have one question. So how does that...
You need the microphone.
How does that entrepreneurial technician who has a great solution engage with the likes of Nike and Costa? How can they really...
So as I say, I'm not in sales, and perhaps actually I am without knowing it. My consulting background, working with customers, delivering what a customer needs, is about listening, understanding the pain points, trying to work and shape something that matches what they need. So actually, strangely, maybe I am in sales. I don't know if all is.
The communications theorists would say that all communication is about persuasion, which means that you say anything, you're trying to persuade somebody of something, so you're trying to sell them something, aren't you? Might be an idea. The thing I would say about that, my experience of product development, is that in terms of the MVP, you need to be sufficiently embarrassed by it to gain buy-in from customers. So most people go to customers with what I think are overly developed prototypes. It's better to go with something that is really a bit embarrassing. You need to feel that they're just going to tell you this is crap. And the reason it works from a sales perspective is that they kind of take pity on you. They kind of look at you and think, this person needs help. And what it does is they want to. Most people, not everyone, but most people want to help you. Customers want to help you. Most potential clients want to help you. So if you go to them and say, "Look, I need some help," most of them will take pity on you, and they'll give you useful advice, and they'll give you their thoughts and ideas, and that process engages them with you. So that's part of how you build relationships. The problem is that most people go and think, I've got this fantastic product. I mean, I had an example the other week. Somebody rang me up for advice. And then I said, okay, fine. I'm happy to have a chat with you. So we got on this Zoom call and they spent 45 minutes telling them how great they were. I thought, well, why were you calling me? You know, you see what I mean? It's better to go with something that, it's this thing about vulnerability, I suppose. Go with something that you feel vulnerable about. You'll probably get better responses. That's been my experience, so it's probably not universal, but I think it's fine. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Anyone? Any last questions before we thank our wonderful panelists? No? Okay, well then, thank you to our wonderful panelists for joining us today. Our next event is on Thursday the 9th of June. We'll be talking about marketing and branding. We've touched a little bit on marketing today, but that will be a deep dive into that subject. And without further ado, I would invite you to drinks and nibbles out in the lobby where we arrived. Thanks very much. And don't forget your goodie bags.
Don't forget the goodie bag.